Hey guys, Todd from COSN coming at you again today. Hey, so I'm continuing the series from the Pathfinder DVD certification course, and if you don't know where that was at, it's off of the Self-Reliance or Outfitter Self-Reliance website. So I'm continuing the course today, and where I'm at today is we are on Block 1, Module 3, and of course, like I said before in my prior videos, I've already done all the research, and now I'm doing a lot of the practical exercises. So now Block 1, Module 3 is Camp Comforts, and there's two exercises. One is building utensils out in the field. I want you to build 3 different ones and do like a video or a photo series on one of the tools or utensils that you build. But I'm not quite all the way through with that one, and I do have exercise 2 done, which is the fire pit or hearth. And I just want to talk about that really quick and then show you what I have constructed. So what I do, I use a lot of acronyms. I know acronyms are way just overused, and after a while it just becomes common sense. But a good acronym that I've used and also used in different classes is FLAME. So basically what FLAME is F is your fundamentals, L is location, A is adjustments, M is maintaining, and E is extinguishing. So, and with each one of those, there's like fundamentals, and I'll just go over a couple of them really quick that's underneath fundamentals. Basically, things to look at. So, what are you using the fire for? Is it just for cooking? Is it for warming? Is it, add light? There's different reasons why you build a fire. And usually a 2-foot in diameter fire is equivalent or good enough to keep roughly about 2 to 3 people warm, and then you go bigger from there, 3 to 4 foot diameter for larger groups. And of course mine's a little bit smaller because of course it's just me. So, and moving on, there's a lot of things to think about under fundamentals. Where's your prevailing wind coming from? You don't want it blowing in your shelter. You don't want to blow embers out of your fire into combustibles, things like that. And then building on top of gravel or sand or bare dirt, that's a good thing. You want to make sure that you don't have any combustibles, and also you want to, when you dig a depression, go down. This is the way I build it, so this is my opinion on it, and this is kind of goes back to the acronym FLAME. Is I dig down 8 to 10 inches. And I look for roots, and especially in the high desert, because roots are really high up to gather water in the desert. So you want to make sure you dig down, bust those roots up. And I dig down, like I said, about 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches, and then I refill the hole and get that, back up about 3 to 4 more inches of dirt, and I pack it down. So it makes a nice layer between, possibly more roots and your fire. And the big deal about the roots is, of course it can ignite and go over to a tree and actually cause a forest fire. So moving on to location, look for level ground if possible, 1 to 12 paces away from your shelter, just so you don't fry your sleeping bag or your tarps, things like that. An area that has materials for your fire. If you're building and that goes back to building the shelter, looking for materials, resources, like I covered in the other module. Adjustments. Okay, adjustments are basically, after you get your fire, if you need a fire quick, get the fire going, build it, get it going, and, get yourself warm. But if you have time, look at building basically a fire reflector. We talked about radiation in the last video. Design, basically, kind of also putting a chute, and I'll show you here in a minute on my fire pit, is making an area for cooking, so you can pull coals out and cook your food on, so that you have basically a little area within your pit that isn't outside of your area. Maintaining. So maintaining is basically what it means. And a lot of this stuff is common sense. It's real basic. It becomes like second nature when you start doing it over and over and over again. This is real basic stuff that hopefully will help somebody that's coming out, for the first time, or things to think about when they come out. So, like I said, maintaining is gathering enough wood that you think you need, and then double it. You know as well as I do that, depending on what you gather, especially out here, all we have is very highly flammable wood. It's a soft wood most of the time. Juniper isn't really soft, but it burns really fast, and it does burn hot, but it burns fast. You can gather, we always say, times 10, get as much as you think you need and times it by 10 out here, because in the desert environment, that wood just burns fast. So that's another thing to think about in this type of environment. But in a regular environment, usually double it. Sometimes you could triple it depending on, the weather and the conditions. So Also, wood selection. Of course, that's pretty simple for most of us. You know, thinking about soft woods for kindling, hardwoods for a longer burn. You know, to maintain your burn and last through the night. And then keep it manageable. You know, keep it a manageable size. I've seen a couple people that I'm just like, man, you're going to start a forest fire. You know, I'm watching them and they got this bonfire roaring. You know, keep it manageable. You know, you don't want it to get away from you, especially in a survival situation, because then you just made your situation that much worse. So that's something else to think about. Now moving to extinguishing. I know that, you know, that's the E of flame, and a lot of people, I've seen people do it right. I've seen people, oh, who cares? It'll burn out, things like that. I'm a big stickler on putting a fire out properly. And it's funny, I've had a buddy who was like, what are you doing? It's out, it's out. I'm like, nope, it's not out. I want to put it out. And I'm just a big stickler on that. But, you know, one, of course, is using your water. A lot of people just dump it on and they're, okay, it's out, and they move on. Well, you know, what you should do is dump it on and mix it up, dump it on, mix it up, and then feel it. See if it's still hot. If it's not hot anymore, you're good to go and roll out. But if it's still hot, keep adding, because if you've had a fire going all night, you know how hot it can get, and you need to extinguish it properly. Using dirt, that's a big thing too that people don't understand. If you don't have water, especially in this desert environment, if you don't have water, you know, get yourself some dirt and you put it into the fire and mix it. Don't just dump it onto the fire and pound down on it and just leave it, because it can have a tendency to smolder for hours and hours, and it could potentially start a fire. So what you do is you basically dump the dirt in your fire and you mix it around. Of course, you want it to burn it down to coals first. Spread your fire out, let it burn down. Spread your fire out, let it burn down before you add your water or your dirt. But if you don't have time, then you start adding your dirt and you start mixing it in, and that will basically, you're taking your oxygen, you know, away from the fire. So those are just some of the things that I think about and they're kind of, like I said, second nature. A lot of this stuff is common sense if you've been out in the woods a long time. But if you haven't been, this is some of the things to think about. And like I said, I use the acronym FLAME. And if you're curious, I'll put a link maybe down in the description block on that acronym. So I'm going to show you my fire pit and my hearth. And like I said, this is block 1, module 3. And that's Camp Comforts, exercise 2, hearth and fire pit. And they don't even really go into anything. All they want is a picture of your fire pit. So you have to do the research, or if you've been out in the woods a long time, you know how to make a fire pit properly. So just that being said, I'll talk you over my fire pit and show you what I built. Okay guys, hopefully you can see this. I know I'm in the shade, and it was kind of designed to go with the debris shelter that I'm building, which I haven't built, if you're curious why there's so many rocks around here that I've already moved into kind of position. So anyway, this is my fire pit or hearth. Got my fire reflector, and like I said, I made it a little bit smaller because it's just me with the shelter. But I've also surrounded this by rocks, and like I said, I refilled it in, packed it down, and I've also made, like I said, adjustments, which is, you know, my fire reflector, and I've also made a place for cooking, and this will be perfect for my bush grill. It'll fit in here, good spot, and then have my fire in here. I've also made it so that if I need to, you know, I can always put a spit over the fire and just rotate or whatnot with the height of the rocks. So, and that's my fire pit. I know it's a lot of talking just for a fire pit, but you know what, there is a lot of things to think about, and a lot of people just go out and light a fire and roll with it. But there is a lot of safety, there's a lot of basic ideas behind it, but there is a purpose to the design. Hey guys, so I thank you for watching and all your support and all your comments and everything you guys do for me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're enjoying this series.